Are you like most sales and other professionals who want to grow their wealth faster than what they are currently doing through their company 401k, even with that company match, the stock market, or just plain saving money? Would you sleep better at night if you had the financial freedom to be job optional in just 3 to 5 years through investing in real assets? Maybe you don't want to stop working, but wouldn't it be cool if you could retire a decade earlier than most? And do the traveling you and your family have planned for years while you're still young and can enjoy it? Let's face it, most busy professionals don't have the time or desire to take on more work outside of their W-2 to grow their wealth. On The Wealth Flow, each week we share the stories, the investments, and take a deep dive into the various asset classes that can deliver that accelerated growth to your portfolio passively. That's right, no extra work for you. Instead, we'll put your money to work. Learn what the 95% aren't talking about and join the top 5% of earners today on The Wealth Flow.
All right, welcome to The Wealth Flow. My guest today is Joséphine Saffert. Joséphine is a German native who came to Nashville, Tennessee as a D1 track athlete, recruited in 2011. Joséphine sponsored her green card by providing ground-up housing opportunities in Middle Tennessee, adding to the American economy as a real estate developer. As part of making her American dream a reality, she built Sapphire Development Group, a vertically integrated real estate development and investment firm based in Nashville, Tennessee. Sapphire & Company delivers a one-stop shop real estate experience, from offering off-market deals, developing ground-up single and multifamily. She built a development pipeline of 30 million plus, focusing on elevating targeted neighborhoods within a 10 to 15 mile radius of downtown Nashville. Sapphire Development Group is committed to developing real estate that creates lively communities in Nashville's urban core. Joséphine, welcome to The Wealth Flow.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to chat.
Me too. And I know your story is a little different than a lot of the guests that I've had, because you're not a native to America. And so if you maybe want to just, I always like to start with, where you grew up and what eventually led you, in this case, to the U.S., but also, also to real estate.
Yeah, we'd be glad to. So German native, family still lives in Germany. And I initially actually came to the U.S. through sports. So just ran track, 400 meter hurdles, was recruited right out of high school. And that was sort of my first creative financing deal.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah. Since then, it's been a wild journey. So, gladly, happy to have found the way into real estate. And that's ultimately what's kept me here in the U.S. Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. So you came as a D1 track athlete, and that's a little unusual, isn't it, to be recruited from? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just something I haven't heard of as much. But is that unusual to be recruited from? Was it a particular university or?
It is pretty common that D1 schools are recruiting really, globally. I think for track, a lot of times we just don't hear it as much, right? Because like US is such a dominance on sprints. But Austin Peay State University here. So 30 minutes north of Nashville recruited me. And so it just was a fit with the coach at the time. And, when you come from overseas, you don't really know much other than really the track coach, a little bit of what the university. So I'm really glad that it was Nashville, the Nashville greater area. Or otherwise, I would have never really found out about this market, particularly that's been so important and later on, right now, with what I do.
Yeah, for sure. So what were you studying when you were in school, and how did that translate to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I studied finance and international management, and I started in the U.S., but I also studied in Germany, which is essentially economic science. But I've always worked in between and during school. Just really wanted to get a lot of experience, because at some point I knew I wanted to become entrepreneurial. But initially really thought I was going to go down the investment banking route.
Okay. Okay. What was your first exposure to real estate? And you're obviously in a kind of a different avenue of that, being real estate development as well. But yeah, tell us a little bit about how you got into that.
I so I actually grew up around like interior design through my father. So real estate was always quite around me. My very first job from 13 to 18 was literally an architecture shop, building those like multifamily models and whatnot. So, real estate was always there. I just didn't think that, right after college, it would be sort of, pulling me back to going all in on real estate and then especially starting my own company. But it's been all sort of coming at full circle. And so, I graduated in 2016, ended up moving to Manhattan, just joined a tech startup to network the, VC side, private equity, angel investor side, learned how to raise capital, was really, fascinated by sort of listening to these like pitches from Google, Microsoft, et cetera, and got the hang of it really quickly. And so ultimately that was part the foundation that I then, mixed with my knowledge in finance to get started with just kind of flipping the first properties, like raising capital, and that quickly scaled. That's really how it first came about in 2017.
Okay, yeah, that's a great experience, and obviously a great way to start. Obviously, for venture capital and that kind of thing, you got to raise quite a bit of capital. So that gives you a good foundation to be able to translate to this. And then, what type of real estate did you start with? And did you have any mentors that you worked with as far as being able to, jump in and start, raising and what did you do first? Did you do single family, multifamily? What?
Yeah. No, I started. I started in my real estate journey really with fix and flips. Single family homes. We bought a lot of auction property, REO properties, bank owned, foreclosures. So really started very organically. It was just that. So I had submitted my green card application as an EB-2 and with a national interest waiver, and with that. At some point, immigration services came back and said, well, renovating homes doesn't count as a business for immigration purposes. So it's seen as recycling value versus building original value ground up. And so at that moment, I said, well, what about new construction? So for me, it was out of necessity. I basically quickly pivoted and learned new construction pretty much within about that first year-ish. And it kept running with it. But if it wasn't for that, I don't know if I would have gone that quickly into new construction. And so my first new construction project then had to be sort of a multi-million-dollar deal. And so I ended up building 4 homes, selling them for $500,000 each, and had a $2 million project. So that that was sort of like the green card then case, if you will. And I kept running with it since. So definitely in that residential, realm, and now looking to scale the projects because at the end of the day, the crux is the same and the work is pretty much the same. So yeah, but that's the story in a nutshell.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty cool for sure. And doing it out of necessity. And I never would have thought with the green card that there would have been a stipulation like that it needed to be from the ground up. And so that's just neat. That's cool that you pivoted so quickly and jumped right into it. How about, how did you learn though, new construction?
Yeah, I mean, it was really trial and error, to be honest. I mean, at the time, so what is that, 6.5 years about, 7 years ago? Yeah, 6-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not like at the time, there weren't even really coaching programs and whatnot. And even today, I mean, we just launched like a developer academy for that reason. Because
Oh, really?
yeah, because I mean, learning development ground up is not as accessible, right? Like nationwide. And so I learned it by really just making friends at Metro, zoning and getting a land use attorney. That's been fantastic. And just asking other people how they did what they did, right? And then learning from them, learning from architects and from builders, walking their projects, asking all the questions, just getting really curious. And so I've learned it really by just truly doing and by asking a ton of questions. I mean, same as you're learning a language, right? You're learning a new skill set. And that's really kind of how I approached it. And even today, learning now larger deals, I mean, it's kind of the same process all over. But in order to kind of help others like also come up in the space, like, to move away from flipping properties, for example, going more into new construction, that's why I created Developer Academy, just because new construction is so much more scalable than fix and flips, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, truly is. And I definitely want to hear more about that, but maybe take us to your next deal. So you did this four unit project, sold the homes for around $500,000 a piece, and you were off to the races. But what did you do from there?
Yeah, I've had a quite wild journey the last 6 years, that's for sure. We've done some land development, some rezonings, entitlement work, and then continued to build 4 units pretty much, so minimum 4 units. And then now I ended up splitting from my former business partner. Unfortunately, it became quite the legal battle. And, ultimately, it had me fully restart in 2020. So Sapphire Development Group is still fairly young just because I actually did it all over again. And this time a little bit larger. And so we've now, acquired an industrial side. I think that's probably the most exciting acquisition so far. It's a former metal plating facility here in North Nashville. That's also my first brownfield project that I'm redeveloping for 32 townhomes. And we're currently in development phase. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that is exciting. So what were some of the maybe, I guess just in general, going from like fix and flip to development, what are some of the things that, maybe you wouldn't have thought of or that are just different that you need to keep into consideration when you're looking at doing development?
Mm, yeah, I mean, I think when you flip property, right? Like every property is very different, right? You open a wall, you don't know what you're going to find. You kind of always
Right.
trying to figure it out on the fly. I think with new construction, there's just so many more benefits that you kind of know what you're going to build, right? Like I think some of the learnings along the way are just obviously the better you are in the planning phase, the better experience you're going to have, right? I mean, now you're going to have to account for the mechanical closet, you're going to have to account for the absolute details, right? I mean, that's the fun part too, that with every project you're learning, you're like, oh, what about this? Or, oh, next time we could do, tweak it there. And then you get to do that. So I kind of like to have that blank canvas and then get to really create and build. And, obviously with that also yielding other investors a return. But yeah, new construction, I mean, in a way, it's easier, I think, than fix and flips. And in regards to, the builders, I mean, you do want an experienced team. I think with
Right.
the flips, you might sometimes get away with like some, just cosmetical tweaks, right? But yeah, with new construction, you want to make sure you have a good systematized operation.
Okay. And how are some of the ways that you've established that team of the reliable trades, whether it be electricians, builders, architects?
I mean, so I basically assembled a team, right? Like, so I bet like the builders, and I look for builders like general contractors that do have an operation where they're really keeping track of all the things, right? But then we, like on my end, like, we have a bookkeeper that goes through every single like backup invoices, matches that, make sure that, we're not missing anything. I'm really big about sort of that, trust but verify type of deal
Right.
where you've got,
Yeah.
it's still the construction industry, right? Like, so, but I want to make sure that, that we, like our projects have the proper project manager's attention. Just because like, when you have several builds going up at any given time, you want to make sure that like they're not, out of capacity and that they're really there on side, managing the subcontractors and trades.
Okay. And so on the let's maybe just go back to maybe the original first four that you did. After you did that, did you buy another plot of land and then just build another four? And did you keep the same floor plans and everything, or how did it progress a little bit along the way? What did that look like?
The next year that we did then was a rezone. It was a complicated one. It was a special purpose rezone. And at the end of the day, that was a different design. And I mean, I'm, 4 or 5 6 years into like just a new construction itself, we're using floor plans that we're repeating, right? But it takes some time in the beginning to really, get to that floor plan where you know that really works and that's a really desirable product and you're going to build that again. So I've not actually built my very first or second project then again, but since then now have some products that I know I'm going to build for a long time, just because I've tweaked them to a point where I love them. I know our buyers love them, and it's just a great product.
Okay. And so with the current project, this one, I guess tell me a little bit about the land itself. You mentioned it was what was the term you used? Brownfield project. Can you maybe go into that? What is a brownfield project, and what are the things to consider with respect to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, given that it's an abandoned former metal plague facility, and it gave me a little one-on-one on chemistry, and I thought I was done with that after high school, but apparently not. So it was a zinc plating like facility versus like a chromium, which is actually a big deal. If it would have been chromium, I don't think I would have moved forward in a due diligence, more like post the due diligence phase. Brownfield really refers to essentially like a environmental cleanup type project, where we have a little bit of contaminated soil that we are preparing to basically then make sure that we're having the soil management plan in place to make sure that it balances out, right? So the goal kind of with that type of project is that during the due diligence phase, you can approximate of how many cubic yards are contaminated, and then understanding what the transport costs would be. And if you can have the site like balance out essentially from an import export standpoint of like the actual dirt, right? And so when we started this project in due diligence phase, we do a phase one. In this instance, we had to do a phase two and took a lot of soil samples. So it was a really comprehensive, geotech and sampling process. In fact, we're still like finishing up some of it. It's been definitely quite a process. And then with a brownfield project too, and I'm sure it depends like state to state to a certain extent. But here in Tennessee, we joined the voluntary oversight program, which is essentially state governed type program to make sure that you're following a certain process so that, the site is safe and sound as you move forward into development.
Yeah. Okay. And so like in the phase one, what came up that, it was like, oh crap, we've got this issue that we need to, number one, go to a phase two and take a deeper look at it. But what came up in that initial one?
You just have some, not to get super technical, but you just have had some chemical levels that like just needed more like sampling to confirm of what the actual like results really are. Because the phase one is more like a screening, right? It's kind of like, hey, like, what do we have here on site? We've had some asbestos too, right? So, but then phase two is really more so like, okay, hey, what are the actual like levels of the chemicals on site, or like, also making sure that, we took like deeper like soil samples than like initially, Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And from a remediation standpoint, so what do you do now? You mentioned being able to take out some to I didn't quite follow, but like what is it? Are you mixing like fresher soil in with this to kind of blend it out, or what is the process?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so we haul off what needs to be hauled off, and it's state governed, right? Like to make sure. It's basically being all tracked. Like literally on site even as you do it. We're not quite there yet.
Okay.
And ultimately, we, depending on like the designated soil plan, you basically then bring in new dirt as well, like new soil. And so it's the same of also like, sometimes you can discover like soft soil, right? So you need to make sure that you balance this out more to have, a stronger soil for like foundations and et cetera to actually.
Yeah, that you can build on.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, and then, say with some of the contaminated soil, there is a spot or there is a designated place where you're allowed to have that offloaded to. I guess.
Right. So that's actually really fascinating. So our next site here is, I believe, in Kentucky. So initially, when I got started with this due diligence process and the project itself, I wasn't aware that some of these sites are so far away. I think like for us, like here, the closest are Alabama and then Kentucky. So and that's why the transport cost that I mentioned earlier, like really matters to explore.
Yeah.
Because depending on how many truckloads you have, right, you've got to do the math on it of what the costs are. And so that was a really fascinating due diligence. I'm really glad that I sort of early in my career really tackled a brownfield because it's just it's been really interesting to obviously learn like new things and B, I think the knowledge like just helps also for future deals because obviously it's really valuable to be able to tackle brownfield project and not necessarily be just like scared away and not even look at him because I think there's a lot of opportunity in different cities from a brownfield standpoint and just redeveloping those.
Yeah, I think so too. I think most cases people would have saw that on the phase one and said, "Okay, let's pass and let's move on to something else." Now you've equipped yourself with the ability to work through this one and know for the next one you just need to be sure you know how far you're transporting it. Were they able to folks that were doing the phase two? Were they able to give you kind of a cleanup estimate of what it was in advance while you were still in your due diligence, or are you sort of finding that out along the way?
Before I closed on it, I definitely wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was, I think at the time, that was a cool story because I actually did it within 60 days, which is kind of wild to think about. We had like, the survey within a week, phase one within about 2 weeks, within 3 weeks, we pretty much had phase two done. I mean, it was like so fast. And then we needed additional soil samples. So actually when day 60 hit, we just ended up come together in a room with, the geotechs and, with the environmental engineers. And I think it was like 6 or 7 of us, just kind of like, jotting out the math, what we think it could be like to span the range, right? And then I ended up actually deciding to make the earnest money go hard and add another 30 days just of additional sampling, just to double, triple check. Then it checked out and we moved forward and the site actually priced a little bit higher than what we closed it for. And but to your point too, like other buyers before did shy away. I mean, I think it was five or more buyers before us that tried to tackle this. So it was a really fascinating process. But we've just really had a great team so far.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really neat.
Yeah.
And so, so once you get the cleanup completely done on this, then you'll start building. Are you having to bring in any utilities, or what all does that look like for these? And you said these are going to be townhomes?
Yeah, 32 townhomes, so 6 buildings. We're still on the residential code basically because we're keeping it 8 units or less per building block. So since I've been working on the site now for a minute, so depending on like we're going to be demoing hopefully here in like the next 3 or 4 months, and then I might actually really sell it off just because we've done so much like value add on the land side. But we have the full plans for 32 units, right? And so otherwise we'll build it out. We're just not sure yet. And so we were bringing in some utilities. Essentially, we're just like sending them, right? Like, I mean, we have utilities available like on site, but it's a 1.3 acre site, so just like extending to like the other buildings that are on the site plan.
Okay. And did you say you had to do some changing in zoning on this one as well?
Actually, in fact, no, but it is interesting because it's 2 different zoning codes here that we're working with. So because it was 3 parcels, so it was actually the former metal plating facility and then 2 duplexes. So it was actually a makeup of like 3 parcels that we now since combined. But 2 of the parcels are RM20A, which is a lower density, and then the other one is RM40. So that just like means that we actually still have to honor the underlying zoning code, but there wasn't a benefit to really zone or rezone for higher. It's just like here in Nashville already quite highest density for what you really can fit on site. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's neat how just land itself. I mean, even getting to completing what you've done. Now all of a sudden you have this product, and you can make a decision: do I just want to sell it, flip it off to somebody else at this point? And you've already built the value just by all your hard work so far. So
Yeah, it's been a cool process. So just looking to do, ideally like a 75 unit type of townhome project or like something vertical, just really exploring that more, just to find more like economy of scale, like in one location, rather than sort of hopping all over town. But yeah.
yeah, that's neat. So what comes next after this project? I guess obviously it'll depend on what your exit strategy is on this one, but what do you see in the future for your developments?
Yeah, we're actively looking for a site for, like I said, higher a higher volume. So we're looking at a larger like townhome type project, sites for that, as well as like downtown, a site for like a vertical that is over 100 units plus. So just really open. But we love the downtown or like 10 to 15 minute type core around Nashville. There's just like so much growth. It's still very organic. So definitely looking to continue to stay part of that and, build more housing opportunities.
Okay. And is there still opportunity you feel like? I mean, Nashville is such a hot market right now. Is it, are you still able to find land opportunities that still make sense from a development standpoint? I guess so. If you're finding some of the, especially like, what you were looking at with this Brownfield project, I mean, you would think you'd get some kind of a discounted price for, a project that you have to do so much work for.
Yeah, I mean, I believe so. I think that there's still a lot of deals out there. I think also with the economy, just where things are, that we're starting to see more and more deals come up, right? That's
Mhm.
probably true for so many other cities as well. I think Nashville in particular. Have you been to Nashville recently? Or
Not recently. It's been a couple years, but even when I went, I mean, the growth was pretty incredible, and I know it's gone even up since I was there last.
Yeah, totally. And so Germantown area is sort of the northern part. I mean, there's still a lot of industrial, right? And we're seeing that, piece by piece being redeveloped. We have a really large project here in town. That's the East Bank redevelopment, really utilization of the river, the Cumberland River. So I think we're just now seeing that even the east side is being more connected or getting more connected with the downtown core, right? So I think that speaks volumes for us continuing to see more opportunities. Oracle's building $1 billion campus right by the river as well. So we've gotten the commitment of really large, companies as Allianz Bernstein, Amazon, Oracle, that are all like finding a home here and are expanding. So I think from a residential standpoint, whether it's like really single families type builds or like multifamily, I think we're still seeing an overall like housing type shortage, right? And that provides for a lot of opportunity as a developer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so what are some of maybe the just from the academy that you have? What are some of the things that folks can learn about development that will help them? Is it and are you looking at being specifically in the parameter of the Nashville area, or are you also considering branching out beyond that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the Developer Academy, we coach, investors, wholesalers, realtors, like already A players in their field on how to break into development, right? So we're teaching basically from A to C what you need to know about development so that you're successful. And that's actually now been expanded to 4 states. So we are in Texas and Houston, in Kansas, Illinois, Cook County, and Tennessee. So it's been really fun, seeing others essentially learn development and everything that I've done, they can do too, right? It's been really fulfilling seeing that growth. And with that, also learning about other markets as well, right? So we really customize that information about zoning planning for their county that they're looking to get active in. Yeah.
Okay. And so how many people are a part of that academy at this point? And, When you say you're in 4 different states, those are students of yours that are starting in certain areas, and then you're just kind of helping them through that process, and kind of giving them the framework and the structure on what to be able to do.
Right, correct. Yeah. So these are students of the academy, and so we had launched like late last year, and so it's been really just a program that's been live for about 3-4 months, and so that's been really fun. Definitely fast like growing. I mean, we're adding about probably 2-3 or so, a week, every week or every other. So it's been really fun seeing that, and looking to expand. As we grow, and very active through Instagram there and connecting with others.
Okay. And what are some of the types of projects that the students are looking at doing?
Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, we're seeing some six builds. We're seeing actually a commercial type project where there's a restaurant build out included. We're seeing just general like residential. We just actually had a call earlier about someone that's looking to possibly build like sort of restaurant kitchens, sort of different type of concept. So it's really a broad range, I would say. But we've some students in there that already own land too, and that are just like looking to develop their own properties. I mean, at the end of the day, the process is the same, right? So I think like starting on the residential end is just like great to kind of build that track record a little bit more, right? But if someone has a strong knack for, for example, the restaurant space or like mixed use or so, then that's what they tackle. So it really depends on their goals.
Yeah, makes sense. And what do you find as far as some of the different cities, different states, while it in general is kind of the same. I mean, I know certain ones seem to be a little bit more difficult, or maybe have a little bit more red tape to get through. But what are some of the differences that you see from area to area when it comes to developing?
Yeah, I mean, I think Davidson County, so Nashville, Tennessee here, well, we have about 5 touching counties. So we're familiar with like, diving into other counties type, planning commissions and like that zoning piece in. But I think, Houston is interesting because Houston doesn't have zoning. I know you and I were chatting a little bit before about that. I think it is fascinating that sort of there, as long as sort of makes sense, like you can kind of like put up whatever you kind of want, right? In a way, that's kind of how it feels compared to like Nashville. So I think because there's a lot like less restriction, it's a slightly different process. And I think like just even the planning commission works a little bit differently than Nashville, but it's fun seeing that and the differences.
Yeah, for sure. That's I just in being a real estate broker, I used to have a guy that was he would come in just as a favor, really, to teach the class because he had a huge commercial real estate company, and he would talk about Houston and just say, it truly is the highest and best use of the land. So whatever that next highest and best use is, you can truly do it. So there's not those limitations. And some people would look from the outside and say, well, there's no zoning. That's going to be crazy. It's going to be wild, wild west. But it actually works pretty well. To
be marketable, right? Like, I mean, people still have to want to live there, right? So I don't know
for sure
if you're putting up like some luxury homes next to the gas station, probably not a good idea. But
right.
So
yeah, for sure. All right, and so as far as future projects, that kind of thing, tell me a little bit about what you're doing, or what your vision is for the academy as well.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking to continue to add like also coaches, grow the academy. I would love to see it nationwide. It's basically also a great opportunity for everybody to network, right? Especially for anybody that is currently like, renovating homes, to really dive into sort of that next stage of like new construction and then network with others across the country. So that's kind of the vision there. And then on the development side, obviously we're looking to increase just like the overall like volume, and we'll see where it goes. But we're vertically integrated, so we have the realtor side as well in house, and so I think we have some exciting upcoming projects overall and news that are just not quite ready yet to be shared. But it's been really fun. I think there's some cool things in the works.
Tell us a little bit about that, maybe, for the audience who may not understand what vertically integrated is, but tell us
Yeah.
what that is, and then also maybe what are the advantages of working with a company like that has all that in house.
Yeah, absolutely. So over the years, I had integrated the wholesale aspect. So really farming our own off-market deals so that, we kind of have a way of like also controlling that pipeline. We're not just completely dependent on other wholesalers or realtors. And so that just direct to seller type marketing, right? Like from texting, calling, mailers, the whole nine yards. And I think that the importance of that is just that A, like it's good to learn that process and know it. But B, you're able to control the costs a lot better, right? Than if you're really just dependent on someone bringing you the deal. I mean, we certainly buy from other realtors or wholesalers as well. But at the same time, we just also have our hands like in that, and now like had strong or developed really strong relationships with other wholesalers, and that's how we get deals. And then the piece like on the vertical integration is just that we also control our development projects in terms of the sales, right? Since we raise capital and investors can invest in our projects, so accredited investors, then ultimately it makes them also feel better that we are able to control the marketing and the sales process at the end. So it just makes for better investments.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's really neat to have that kind of control over it. And as you build that team out, you continue to be able to scale it with what you guys have going on there. Maybe from a sales standpoint. So were you vertically integrated with the prior projects that you had as well, and being able to sell them off before, or is that something fairly recent?
So ever since I restarted, essentially, whenever I spun off from my former business partner, I've been vertically integrated.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was just like part of the process where it just made sense to take more control over these processes, and so it's been about like 3 years, 3.5. Yeah.
Okay. And what about from a timeline standpoint? I know obviously this one you're getting close to being able to break ground on the current project, but for a typical ground up development for something like this, I think the current project is like what you say 36 units or somewhere in
32.
that ballpark.
It's about
32 units.
about
Yes. So what kind of a time frame from maybe start to finish is something like that? Start to maybe being able to break ground and start building
Yeah,
it.
I mean, when you take down a site, I mean, it really depends whether it's already entitled or what needs to be done, right? But it easily can take you a year to, get a rezoning done, or to like in this instance here with TDEC, so getting basically the approvals through. I mean, it really depends. I mean, if a land is shovel ready, then it's the time for you to draft the construction documents, right? So I would say like earliest, probably like 6 months.
Mhm.
6 months. I mean, you still need to get building permits, or like in this instance, also grading permit. So the grading permit process here alone is like pretty much 6 months, 4 to 6. So yeah, I mean, on the development side, you definitely are putting, more time in there up front. I mean, that's kind of where, the fix and flips is obviously a lot faster. So the goal, like on the development side, is to kind of stack the projects, right? And so, yeah, that you always like have something in the works.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned a couple things there that I think are interesting to. So the entitlement process. Yeah, again, maybe just for the audience who doesn't quite understand exactly what that is. What does it mean to entitle a piece of land? Obviously, some of the advantages of as once that piece of the puzzle is done, then it can be shovel ready, and a developer who doesn't want to spend all that time trying to get it to that spot can buy it at a premium. So,
Right.
there's value that's being added just by doing that. But can you tell us a little bit about that process and, what all needs to happen in order to get it entitled?
Yeah, I mean, so we as a developer, our job is to define the highest and best use, right? And so depending what you're looking at with a piece of property. I mean, you've improved tracts and you have unimproved tracts, right? And so ultimately, you've got to see whatever the highest and best use is, whether you currently are already legally allowed to perform that, or what it would take to be able to do so. So that is basically then the rezoning process, right? If for example, the zoning is just not allowing or eligible for the density that you're looking for or the use case that you're looking for. So, it could be that that you have sort of a residential piece of land that maybe calls for, I don't know, 8 homes, right? And you believe because the site is large enough, maybe, I don't know, you have an acre, 2 acre plus site, you think you can put on 20 or mixed use because, maybe there's a lack for some kind of a convenience store or offices or whatever it is, right? Like, then ultimately now it's on you to entitle the property to make sure that you're able to build what you see there going. So it's pretty much the process to get it ready for the use that you're thinking, and then also the permitting process, which can be grading permit, and then building permits. Mm.
Yeah. And the grading permit, just to be clear, is like the just how once you build the structure, how is everything, how the land itself is going to be graded? Is that accurate?
Right. And then also, like, if you have shared driveways, you just got to make sure that ultimately the site is well laid out and designed, and that the grade works for what's supposed to go there.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that alone is just kind of a bit of a headache. It's like, but if you're able to solve that problem, there's definitely some value in it for doing that. So that's good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, exactly. Well, Joséphine, maybe if you could tell us a little bit about how people could find out more about you if they're interested in checking out the Academy, or taking a closer look at some of the projects and things that you're doing. How can they reach you?
Of course. We're super active on Instagram. So just my name, Joséphine Saffert. And then also website, sapphiredevelop.com. So PHIRE, develop.com. And otherwise LinkedIn. We're really active on all socials. And to just DM, reach out, and I'm happy to connect.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. And then I've got just a couple more questions, but this has been really interesting. And I know we kind of went down a couple rabbit holes with some of it, and, but I always like when I have a guest on to really kind of explore and dig into some of these different aspects of, real estate. There's so many angles you can go at, and development is certainly one that's fascinating. So, one question I have is, just any advice that you have for somebody who's maybe just starting out in their investment journey.
Always do your due diligence. Don't rush that. Even if someone is in a hurry, doesn't mean you have to be in a hurry. And I think don't quit, don't stop. I think a lot of times things are getting a little bit fuzzy and hard, and real estate can. Some deals, might be more complex, but I think those are those are the ones like worth doing and pursuing, because you learn so much with those type of deals.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's great advice. How about a book recommendation? Anything that doesn't have to be real estate related, but it certainly can be. Just something you've read recently that's been impactful.
I love The Big Leap. I love how it talks about your unique ability and what it is. So really was inspired by that book, and also thinking about, what is my unique ability and what is yours, right?
Right. Yeah. And you said that one was called The Big Leap?
Yeah, The Big Leap. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't think I've had that one mentioned on the show yet, so I will have to check that one out myself, Joséphine. I appreciate it. I asked that for the guest and the audience, but I also ask it for myself.
Of course. I would love to see. Is there like a reference of your book recommendations you've gotten on the show?
I should probably put that together. I haven't done that yet, but it's been a lot of good ones. A lot of them I haven't heard of, and I'm like, wow, this is a pretty good one. So
please put together an Amazon shop and book shop and send it over.
There you go. Sounds good. Well, this has been great. I really appreciate you being on the Wealth Flow, and we'll call it a show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Keith.
Absolutely.
Being that you're still here, I trust you found value in this episode. I personally wish I would have known these guests and strategies when I started my wealth creation journey. Go to wealthflow.capital to subscribe to our newsletter. And as a free gift, we will send you our quarterly market report and the top 10 things to look for in an investment opportunity. Take a minute to give our show a rating and review. Help us reach 1 million professionals by subscribing and sharing this episode with someone you know who could also find value in it.